One last time, how does it end? We don't know for sure, but there are a bunch of pretty compelling theories, plus what the show creators have hinted about how Stranger Things 5 could end. Here are some of the most popular, plausible ones, and my take on what might actually happen. What we know and what the creators have said. It's the final season. The Duffers have confirmed this is the last chapter of the Upside Down story. There will be a big scale emotional ending. The Duffers promise the final season is big and epic. They have apparently known what the last 40-ish minutes would be for years. They have had rewrites for other portions of the script, but for the very end of Stranger Things 5, it has been mapped out from the beginning. There will be very real consequences. David Harbour, who plays Hopper, said things will end in a very real way. And no, it was not all a dream. The Duffers have pushed back theories that the entire show is just a D&D game or some dream. They say that's not how it's gonna end. And I mean, come on, why would it? The last episode of season 5 is titled The Right Side Up, which does suggest some kind of resolution or flipping back of the upside down metaphor. The upside down will be no more, but at what cost? Here are a few pretty big theories that fans are floating around. Some of them are more likely than others based on what the Duffers have said and what we've seen from the show so far. Many believe that Eleven might make a huge sacrifice, possibly even die or permanently lose her powers to close or contain the Upside Down. This fits the hero's arc she's had, powerful but trauma-laden, and often having to risk herself. Some people think that Vecna has been a pawn, and that there's a more powerful force, like the Mind Flayer, behind everything. This is going to make the final confrontation even bigger, more metaphysical than just a fight with Vecna. I wouldn't call this one a theory so much as Dustin literally calls this out in season 4. However, I did want to include it as casual fans may not be expecting a cosmic horror level of fight between our cast and the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer has got to be a deeply sinister force, as they are the centerpiece of the Upside Down, perhaps even its creator. Will has a very special connection to the Upside Down. Several fan theories propose that he may control parts of it or fight Vecna from inside, kind of like a cleric or a spiritual anchor or, well, a shadow walker, as he will be able to fight from both sides, regular Hawkins and the Upside Down. It is very possible that we lose our cleric. In some theories, Will even sacrifices himself along with Eleven in a mental showdown. Now, I don't know if the Duffers will take another daughter away from Hop, but all bets are on the table for season 5. I do think it's more likely that Will dies heroically and that Eleven barely survives, but now without her power. She will finally be able to live a normal life without the survivors of the War of the Upside Down. Either way, we know that Will and Elle play a huge role in ending the fight against the Flayer. And now here's a pretty big one. The finale could reset time, sending things back to November 6, 1983, the night that the Upside Down first became a threat. Season 5 is supposed to thematically tie everything into a full circle. I don't think that they go back to November 6th, 1983, and everything is how it was minus the Upside Down and Will's disappearance. Instead, I believe that this reset happens internally within the Upside Down, essentially deleting it, preventing a time loop or a leak. If they reset time with the Mind Flayer defeated, this may just cause the Upside Down to cease from existing. But the damage that's already been done is not reversed. So I'm very sorry, Barb. I'm sorry, Bob, Billy, and Eddie, of course. Man, they really had a theme of killing off characters whose names started with B until Eddie, huh? Oh, and Alexi. My fault. Rip Alexi. Beautiful man. This theory does get pretty messy as it deals with time dilation and the multiverse, but that's all I've got right now. So we're moving on to a pretty badass theory, if you ask me. Eleven becomes the guardian of the Upside Down. Rather than simply destroying the Upside Down, Eleven might become its guardian or ruler to prevent it from ever threatening Hawkins again. This is poetic. She was created in part by the darkness, i.e. MK Ultra, so ending by containing the darkness of the Upside Down makes thematic sense. It's poetic and it does make sense, but I do believe that Elle is going to sacrifice herself or her powers rather than become the keeper of the Upside Down. Which again, I think is super badass, but comes with its own set of issues. Ultimately, I believe the Upside Down will cease to exist completely, and that will even out with 11 surviving but losing her powers, thus losing the link to the life of turmoil that she has endured. The Upside Down dies, as does 11's powers, but she will live, except now she can enjoy life as a normal human. It'll be a relief as she will no longer rely on the powers for anything. There'll be no reason to. No Mind Flayer and no Vecna. Now there is a big lack of Max and Steve in the trailers apart from him being shown driving into the gate with Dustin, Nancy, and Jonathan, and then consoling Dustin. I think Dustin crying is a moment where Steve is attempting to let Dustin get all the emotions tied to Eddie's death out. It's a much needed venting session, and again, may signal the end of Steve. He is fulfilling all of his babysitting duties before he goes out in a blaze of glory. That hurts to even type, but I do see it happening. As for Max, we don't see her in the trailers because the Duffers have a big surprise for her. She won't just be somewhat healed from her blindness, but she will now be the seer for the group as she can now see the Upside Down. Now, not everyone is going to survive. We have speculated that Ted Wheeler is going to serve a much bigger purpose in Season 5, instead of being a wet towel, as Karen Wheeler previously suggested. He's been a dormant character, yet just got his own commercial. Meanwhile, we see in the trailer that Miss Wheeler and Holly are hiding from a menacing Demogorgon that has come into their house. I believe we see Nancy wiping the blood of her father off her hands as he protects and saves Holly and Karen, leading to his untimely death. This is why we see Nancy crying, not because she lost Steve or Jonathan, but because she wasn't there to save her dad. Steve Harrington is one name that comes up in one of the most emotional sacrifice theories. I also made a video called Steve Must Die in Season 5 of Stranger Things, and it's almost inevitable. He is my favorite character, so this would devastate not only myself, but plenty of other Steve stans and the Stranger Things fan base. We will riot in the streets of Hawkins. Alas, I think we will be saying goodbye to Steve the Hare Harrington in Season 5 in a heroic act of saving Dustin, as they have been shown to be in the Upside Down together for a few scenes. Pair this with the infamous "Run, Steve" that circulated the internet last year. We know that these two boys will be fighting for their lives. One small consideration to make, which would be soul crushing, is Dustin makes a sacrifice for Steve. I think this is less likely, but also poetic, as he could not save Eddie in Season 4. Now with more determination and a huge reality check, I do see it being very possible that Dustin makes a sacrifice for his brother, Steve. Steve would not let this happen willingly, of course, but he may just be in a position where he can be saved rather than save him. This would be a bigger shock to the fan base, but also a beautiful character arc. But I think Dustin barely survives, and we are faked out by the Duffers and the trailers, but for Steve the Hare Harrington, he will be dead by the end of Season 5, my friends. And it hurts even saying that aloud. Oh, and back to Max. She isn't dead, or will end up dead by the end of the season. Instead, she will be similar to Will in the sense that she is able to see the Upside Down thanks to her partial blindness. Well, hopefully it's partial. Either way, she'll be the seer of the group, while Will be the Shadow Walker, either helping the team out or becoming a meat puppet for the Mind Flayer. Max has gone from Zoomer to seer. Remember, much like Will and Mike, Elle and Max are best friends, practically sisters at this point. Elle will not let Max die. She just won't. Now, putting together what the creators have said, what seems to be thematically consistent, plus the strongest fan theories, Here's how I think Stranger Things will end. Final battle. There's going to be a huge, multifaceted showdown, physical and mental, against Vecna and the Mind Flayer. The burn is being orchestrated as they count down to it. Mike, Lucas, Joyce are all shown on this side of the battle. The other side is 11 fighting Vecna, one-on-one, psychic versus mage. I guarantee this release of energy that we see in the trailer is 11's doing. I also believe we see it in the episode Shock Jock, where the jock may refer to Steve and not a radio jockey, and the shock is, well, the massive electric wave being sent across the sky from 11. We don't see this in the part 1 trailer. It's coming later in part 2 or 3, which does worry me because the stakes will be higher. Is this where Steve's sacrifice may happen? He sacrifices himself in order to help get that massive wave of energy across the receivers. Hell, there's even a massive antenna on Steve's car. He is the shock jock. Finally, Will is taking on the Mind Flayer using his connection to it. We know Dusty Bun and Steve are in the Upside Down with Nancy and Jonathan at some point in the season. Steve, Dustin, Nancy, and Jonathan are probably down there being on the opposite end of the burn plan, where we can hear the characters count down what is assumed to be a massive explosion. We know fire will defeat Vecna after all. Will is also in huge danger as Vecna and the Mind Flayer are clearly activating him this season like a sleeper agent. Will is resisting, of course, but then we see him being pulled in Star Wars 4 style by the hand of Vecna. This could be it for Will, although I really think Will snaps the puppet strings and uses his shadow walking ability to distract, trick, and ultimately help defeat the big baddies. Does he survive the act of heroism? The Duffers said season 1 and 5 begin and end with Will. Will the full circle end with Will's demise or a success? I honestly think it ends with this harrowing success and Will barely makes it out alive. Barely. Some characters survive, but not without cost. There will be a sense of you save Hawkins, but things will never be completely the same. 11 and Will are the two keys to closing the Upside Down once and for all, because 11 opened the first gate in 1979, and Will was marked by the Mind Flayer in 1983. Both have a link to the Upside Down's hive mind. Their dual connection makes them the only pair capable of destroying Vecna on both fronts. 11's gonna fight him physically, Will's gonna fight him emotionally and metaphysically from inside the hive mind, but it costs both of them. Most versions of this theory end with one or both sacrificing something huge. 11 loses her powers permanently, Will dies or remains tied to the Upside Down, or both vanish when the dimensional connection collapses. Why is this likely? Well, the Duffers said that the ending is bittersweet. 11's arc is a classic martyr hero structure. Will is the soul of the show and the first link to the Upside Down. And David Harbour said that the ending is very real, code for emotional devastation. Heartbreaking, poetic, full circle. The story ends where it began, with Will and 11. 11 will probably sacrifice something very big. Maybe her powers, maybe more. I lean towards not a clean, everyone lives happily ever after ending, as I have mentioned. I think a couple of fake outs will happen based on these characters' arcs so far, and what I mean is that whatever character is assumed to die, then the opposite character in the same scene will be the one dying. This would complete Dustin's arc, as well as bringing it full circle, this time being able to save Steve, his brother, as Eddie was. Elle is slated to die. I think she loses her powers and lives, while Will loses the piece of him that left him connected to the Upside Down. I do, however, think that the Duffers will give Dustin a heroic ending where we think he's gonna die protecting Steve, but then Steve at the last second takes the bullet for his little bro. Dustin keeps his life and has a group of friends to grieve with. Everyone is gonna have shared trauma, and Hawkins, as the main cast, have all encountered each other at this point. We lost Steve and Ted. This would leave Nancy without a dad, leaving her, Mike, and Karen and Holly to pick up the pieces of their once perfect lives. I see Jonathan stepping up in a huge way to be there for the Wheelers, perhaps a union between House Byers and House Wheeler. Jonathan is there to console Nancy as they lost Steve, and her dad Ted. Nancy is torn up as she still had feelings, whether it was just a friend or more. It was definitely more. These feelings were unresolved, but she knows how much Steve cared for her. She remembers him risking it all since he broke into their house with a bat and took on a Demogorgon in season 1. Life for them will never be the same, but together, I think they will learn to live a new life. Jonathan is there for the Wheelers, as is Joyce, who is there for Karen, as Karen doesn't know how to begin to move on without her husband Ted. I think Jonathan gains more emotional intelligence and understands what Steve meant to Nancy. Hell, Jonathan and Steve even started bonding to a degree. Ted and Steve die as heroes sending ripples down Hawkins. I think the new and improved Demogorgons are responsible for their deaths. Now I do have a wild card death. Another character, like Steve, who has risked it all to save what they care about. I'm talking about Hopper. He's shown with Elle in the Upside Down fighting alongside her. We've already been shown how Joyce picks up the pieces and is a mother for 11 in season 4, and I think Hop is dead, but hoping that he's alive. He had his moment with Joyce, and from season 4 to 5, I'm sure they've had plenty of quality time spent with each other, as they are now the adopted parents of Elle. Joyce will absolutely be there for Elle, as Elle will be there for Joyce. This would leave Joyce and Elle very distraught, but as they have done before, they will find a way. This also wraps up Hopper's arc perfectly, although tragically. He started off as a broken man working a job he did not particularly care for. Now, his title as chief of police has been eradicated, and the word that takes its place is hero. Jim will absolutely take a bullet or a Demogorgon to protect who he loves. I think he dies in the Upside Down while fighting alongside Elle. The main cast, or the party if you will, Dustin, Mike and Lucas, and Max, will all survive. They're all very different now. They all loved Steve and Hopper, and they embraced Steve as their babysitter, their older brother. They saw Hop as a father figure. Now, they're both gone. Robin has Vicky to help console her, but Robin will absolutely be distraught. And I'm not 100% convinced that Robin survives. After all, she was only introduced in season 3 and has the same energy that Bob and Alexei had. Very helpful to a wild situation that she finds herself in. Then boom, she's gone. I don't see this happening, but I did want to leave it on the table. Steve and Robin, the true martyrs of Stranger Things? I'm not so sure, but if I had to pick 3 characters based on evidence, it would be Steve, Hopper, and Ted. It is the 80s. Although the women are complete badasses now, I do think the men shoulder the burden of destruction by sacrificing themselves for those who they love. The final scene, the Upside Down will be shut down or contained somehow. Not necessarily by destroying it completely, but maybe by rebalancing things. Kinda like how the reset may prevent the disappearance of 83, but the Upside Down still exists, just extremely dormant and inaccessible by anybody. No 11 with powers, no Vecna, and no more Mind Flayer. It is no more. The series wraps with a beautiful epilogue where friends rejoice and grieve. Dustin has already been changed by losing Eddie, and losing Steve would be absolutely heartbreaking to him and us, but I think he will be better equipped in handling it now. The group mourns Steve, Hopper, and Ted as they begin picking up the pieces of his new life. Mike and Elle will be shown happily together. Will is going to be shown being happy for his friend while also exploring himself as he now has the free time and confidence to do so. Robin will be shown mourning Steve as Vicky is consoling her, and we will get a shot of the family that is now Joyce, Will, Jonathan, and 11. All alive but battered, if not physically, then emotionally, or both. Either way, they now have each other. We will get a Byler scene, but I think it'll be more about friendship than anything else. I think Mike supports Will and who he is and welcomes him with open arms, and Will forever remain by his side as his best friend, but nothing more than that. We will see Nancy, who is coping the best as she can, as Jonathan is there to help her do so. Nancy is coping with the loss of Ted and Steve, which is life altering. Even if Nancy didn't want to be romantically involved with Steve anymore, she lost her best friend. You will always, always be the best boy, and I just don't see you surviving this one, King. I just don't. Your crown will always be raised high, and your memory never forgotten. Steve the Hare Harrington. The Upside Down is either gone or forever dormant, and the cast builds a newer version of themselves and Hawkins. The cast and the town are now both completely changed. Some time passes and the main cast stays in Hawkins, as it is the home that they fought for and won. Now, this might not be the case for everyone. Some characters may end up leaving, but if that does happen, I think the final scene is the four boys playing Dungeons and Dragons. One last party. This time, Will rolls that d20 and he hits with a fireball. We see the boys rejoice as they know life is bigger than D&D, but after an insane few years, they yearn to go back to where it all started, Mike's basement. The show ends with grief and joy. Grief over the characters we lost, but joy with how we see them pick up all the pieces of Hawkins and make a new life for themselves. You're always going to be in my heart, Steve. More theory and breakdown videos are on the way after Volume 1 drops. If you made it this far, I appreciate you more than you know. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments, or share your own thoughts on how it'll all end. If you enjoyed the video and think I deserved it, please leave a like and subscribe. Other than that, I will catch you guys next time, and thank you so much for tuning in to Day Trip TV.